How's it going, everybody? Today I'm talking about learning melodies for jazz violinists. In particular, I'm talking about the things that you should and shouldn't do, or that you could or shouldn't do. And even more specifically, I'm talking about learning melodies from Stefan Grappelli. Now, a lot of people get into playing jazz violin through listening to Stefan Grappelli and perhaps wanting to sound like Stefan Grappelli. If that is what you're doing, then amazing. Keep at it. It is one step in the process of becoming a jazz musician. This video is going to help you do that. But the main thing I want to get across today is if you are learning about jazz at the moment and you are trying to learn as many standards and Great American Songbook tunes as you possibly can, I don't think you should be doing it by listening to or transcribing those melodies by Stefan Grappelli, and I'll tell you why. By the way, just to say, if you would like to get involved in any of my teaching, you can do so via Patreon. That's a place that you can either get regular live practice sessions with me, you can get transcriptions of pretty much anything that you see on this channel, and I create new content every week for people who are learning to play jazz violin. Now, I'm not saying that Grappelli was not an amazing, masterful jazz musician, because he was. But when Stefan Grappelli played tunes from the Great American Songbook or played jazz standards, he didn't play the melodies note for note. A large part of Grappelli's style was his amazing way of embellishing melody. He does this in an extremely violinistic way, which is amazing to listen to, and it does create amazing music. But a lot of the time when he is playing these melodies, he's messing around with the melody. He's going all over the place, maybe hinting at the melody, then improvising, then hinting at the melody. And I do know that some jazz fans and jazz musicians don't love that about his playing. On the other hand, I'm a violinist, I'm a jazz violinist, I love Django, I love Stefan. I'm into it. I like to listen to Grappelli doing his thing. But the main point is he's not really playing the melodies very accurately. He's messing around with the melodies. So why shouldn't we go straight into learning his version of the melody? The reason being is that Grappelli knew these melodies like the back of his hand. Most of these songs that he's playing were popular when he was young and were popular throughout his life or for large portions of his life. He knew these melodies really, really well. He also played these melodies, probably accompanying singers when he was playing piano, probably playing in orchestras, playing them with Django. They were part of popular culture when he was young. It's a little bit like if you grew up anywhere around the 90s, you're going to know the melody to Wonderwall by Oasis. You're just going to know it. You're going to be able to sing it. And if you sat down at a piano or with your violin, you'd probably be able to pick out the notes quite quickly and play them sort of perfectly. That's where Grappelli was at, was T for 2. So when he goes to embellish the melody, he's got these songs in the back of his head all the time. Generally, he'll have the correct melodies in his head when he is improvising around them. Now, why shouldn't we just go straight into learning Grappelli's version of the melody every time? Well, that means that we're just going to end up sounding exactly like Stefan Grappelli. And when we go to try and create our own embellishments of these melodies, which we're supposed to do in jazz, that's a big part of being a jazz musician, we're just going to end up embellishing an already embellished melody. So we start to get this strange removal a couple of times now from the actual melody that was intended by the composer when they wrote it. Now, I'm definitely not saying don't listen to him, and I'm definitely not saying don't try and take down his versions of melodies, because that's a great thing to do. But I would say that the best thing for you to do before you do that, or whilst you do that, or alongside doing that, is learning the actual melody for the song that you're going to play. So I've given you the problem, but let's find a solution. How are we supposed to actually learn these melodies? Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this. Let's say there's two ways of doing it if we're going to be black and white about it. Number one is listening to singers. Now, because they are singing them with lyrics and because they're treating them as songs, perhaps a little bit more so than instrumentalists would do, singers will generally be singing the melodies to these songs pretty close to the original. Now, not always exactly the same as the original, however, a lot more so than Stefan Grappelli. I would say a great place to start with any melody for any jazz standard or American Songbook tune is Ella Fitzgerald. I often will go to the Ella version of any tune that I'm learning. Louis Armstrong, also good for this sometimes. So if you're wanting to learn the melody by ear, which I think is a great thing to do, and it's a great way into learning to play jazz, doing so from singers is a very good way of starting. I've had this advice from a couple of people in the past, that even just listening, so listening actively at home, just sitting and only listening, or perhaps listening when you're in the car or on the tube or whatever, walking down the street, walking your dog. It's a great way to get that melody to sort of soak into your brain. Doing so without your instrument, just hearing it enough times to be able to hum the melody to yourself without any prompts. That means that you're sort of learning the melody in a way. You might not be learning exactly what the notes are at that point, but you're just learning the shape of the melody. And then when you go to pick up your violin, it'll be a lot easier to work out what those notes are. It really does depend, of course, the relationship you have between your violin and your voice. Some people are real quick to be able to sing something and then play it, and some people the opposite, not so. But that process is a good one. It's a good one for even just getting better at improvising as we go along. You're really training your ear to follow along with you're training your violin to follow along with your ear. Another sort of add-on to this way of learning the melody is you can try and find the original version of the tune. Now that's one for the geeks, and I would say that I'm semi in there, so I often will do this myself. I'll search out the original version of the tune, and there's a great way that you can do that. There's a website not affiliated to me in any way, so I'm just giving them a nice shout out here, secondhandsongs.com. So you can easily search any recorded song in history and find all the versions of it that have been recorded, and then you can easily, it's all done in chronological order, so you can easily find that first version or that first recorded version. Check that one out, and often you'll find that depending on what the song is, the original version will be quite different to how people play it now. Just because of this sort of Chinese whispers effect that we get with jazz, that we're sort of trying to get away from with the Grappelli problem. But anyway, you will find the first version of the song will often sound maybe a little bit corny in comparison to, the version by Stan Getz or whatever. But it's a great way to sort of know exactly what the composer wrote and also use your ear at the same time. Now there's another even more geeky and even more reliable way. So this is like sort of the second way that I was talking about, and that's finding the original sheet music. Now there are a lot of people who I play with who that's their main source of learning any sort of jazz melody or anything when it comes to jazz. It's finding the original sheet music. It's not actually as hard as you might think. When I say the original sheet music, I'm not saying you need to go and find the first ever printed version of it. I'm actually just saying finding sheet music for it. One way of doing this is just finding songbooks from your favorite composers on Amazon. That's what I've done a little bit of. I've got a Jerome Kern one, a George Gershwin one. And they're all accurate representations of what the composer wanted the song to be, wanted the melody to be. They have to be because they're printed, and that's sort of publishing law, I think. Now, obviously, the last level of geekery here is trying to find original copies from the 20s or the 30s or the 40s or whatever, when these tunes came out, the original sort of printings of it. But you don't have to do that. That's just something that you might want to do for fun. So there you go. You've got two ways of learning melodies. You've got either listening to singers / original recordings of the song, or you've got finding the original sheet music of the song. So those two things can go hand in hand. You can do both. You can do all. You can do one for one song and one for another. It doesn't really matter. You do what you want. The main thing is that we are trying to find a sort of decently accurate version of melodies. Don't listen to Stefan Grappelli's version and think, cool, I've got it. That's how I play it. That's the melody. That's Stefan Grappelli's version. It's not your version. Make your own version. Go for it. Enjoy.